Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Take Your Shot podcast. Of course, as always, I'm your wonderful host, Joshua Gitman. And what a whole entire play-in tournament this has been. From the Eastern Conference Classic we had last night in Philadelphia to the Western Conference wild finish in New Orleans. It has been an absolute incredible play-in tournament, and we still got two more games to go in the play-in tournament. We've got a huge episode for you today. We've got a lot to cover. First, we're going to preview every single play-in tournament game that we've had so far. Then we're going to talk about two teams who are lights out of here. Their season's done. And two teams that are probably going to have very controversial and very interesting off seasons. We still have two more playing games to go to determine the 8 seeds in both conferences. We'll preview both of those. And of course, we have our 7 seeds solidified now, so we will preview the 2 versus 7 seed series. And plus, since we cannot preview the 1v8 playoff series, we'll sparkle a little bit of 1 seeds in there later at the end of the show. But for right now, let's start with recapping the playing games. And let's first go to New Orleans, where we had an absolute classic between the Lakers and the Pelicans, where the Lakers ended up holding on 110 to 106 in an absolute classic finish in New Orleans. It was an absolutely incredible game. Pelicans had the lead. Lakers came back. Lakers took a big lead. Pelicans came back. It really came down to the wire, and it was absolutely thrilling. Considering what we got the prior game on that Sunday when the Lakers blew out the Pelicans, we didn't really want to see that. And the Pelicans put up a good fight, but they ultimately lost. But it was still an amazing game by both teams. Stats for you in this game: D'Angelo Russell had a huge game for the Lakers, scoring 21 points. LeBron had 23, 9 and 9, and AD had 20 points and 15 rebounds. For the Pelicans side, Zion had 40 points and 11 rebounds, and that was with him getting injured with 3:15 to go in the game. CJ McCollum and Brandon Ingram were both minus 17 on the floor for the New Orleans Pelicans in this game. Things that I noticed in this game to start: Pelicans started Valanciunas, which was a little bit interesting. They tried to lean a little bit toward Larry Nance as of late toward the end of the season, but they tried to put Valanciunas in there to be that physical kind of body to wear down Anthony Davis. And for a little bit, it was actually working pretty decently for the New Orleans Pelicans, especially in that first half. But Anthony Davis did pick it up in the second half. But I understand where the Pelicans are going there, and I thought that was a little interesting approach by the Pelicans, giving the Lakers a different look. And I think it definitely worked, containing AD for a majority of the ball game. And as I said, and AD, while he was doing that, missed some easy shots, missed some open opportunities. As I said, Valanciunas was locking him up. Also, the Lakers, to start the game, were really trying to get D'Angelo Russell going. We know the struggles that D'Angelo Russell had in the postseason last year. Don't get me wrong, he played great this regular season. He had probably his best season since the 2019 when he was in Brooklyn, but we all remember what happened last year in the playoffs. So the Lakers were definitely trying to get the pressure off him early, and D'Angelo Russell absolutely thrived in that position, scoring 13 points in the first quarter. He had an amazing first quarter for them, got the Lakers off to a quick start. And speaking of quick starts, Zion also got to a quick start for the Pelicans in this game, where Zion had 12 points early, a lot of those points being in the paint, and the Pelicans were up 34-26 as Zion mostly dominated the first quarter. In the second quarter, the Lakers went on a fast 12-0 run from down 10 to up to 2. Gabe Vincent got a 3, then a steal to start the quarter. I thought Gabe Vincent, even though he didn't play his best game that we saw last year with Miami, one of his better games, this is probably the most impactful we've seen Gabe Vincent on the court as a Los Angeles Laker, which is considerably good for the Lakers, especially if they do want to upset Denver, which, as I said, we will preview later. But Gabe Vincent had a pretty decent game for the Lakers yesterday and was impactful on both sides of the ball for them. And he hit a huge 3, then got a steal, which really started this Lakers run in the second quarter. And then Prince stole the ball after. Hayes hit a dunk. Russell hit a jumper, and then Taurean Prince hit another 3, and the Lakers got up 2. And also Gabe Vincent, as I mentioned, he really had one of his better games. He had 2 threes in the quarter. He really got it going. Gabe Vincent will be a crucial piece if the Los Angeles Lakers want to make it far in the postseason. So Gabe Vincent showing some signs of getting his legs back, getting a little healthier, a very good sign for the Lakers there. And the Lakers were also shooting the ball considerably well. They were shooting 14 out of 35 for the game from the three-point line, and they were really shooting it at a elite rate in the first half. I think they shot 50% from the three in the first half. And we know that the Lakers are not a good three-point shooting team. And if LeBron can get these guys open in the corners and the wings, which he usually does, and they can hit those threes, it will be absolutely lethal, because then teams will have to not put doubles at LeBron, and LeBron will get more easier pass to the rim. If the Lakers can hit threes, this Lakers team will be a lot scarier than they have looked at times. And then that second quarter, as I said, absolutely dominant by the Los Angeles Lakers. On the defensive side as well, they have the Pelicans to 16 points in that quarter. It was like under 10 for a little bit, and then the Pelicans picked it up a little bit to end the half, trying to get some momentum going into the halftime locker room. And it worked for a little bit. The Pelicans tried to make a push in the third quarter, and they didn't really make any momentum changes in the third quarter. They tried, but they ultimately didn't do it. The Lakers had amazing defense. They allowed the Pelicans only one field goal in 5 minutes, and I actually think they got up 18 in the third quarter. But eventually, Zion got on his own 5-0 run, and then Alvarado hit a three to cut the lead to 11, which gave the Pelicans a little momentum going into the third. And then I think, if I'm not mistaken, Trey Murphy hit a three, and then Zion got fouled, and they cut the lead from 18 to 7. So the Pelicans were getting a little momentum. Zion was starting to get some easy buckets in the paint, and it was starting to turn around for the Pelicans in the fourth quarter. What was interesting was, as the Pelicans were coming back, as the Pelicans were playing well, CJ McCollum and Brandon Ingram, arguably their second and third best players, and sometimes are their best players on certain nights, were sitting on the bench for the Pelicans. Willie Green decided to bench those two because they were not playing good basketball for the New Orleans Pelicans. And honestly, it was working, because the Pelicans really came back. They pushed the lead, pushed the deficit only down to 2 with 5 minutes to go. Zion absolutely took over offensively, getting 40 points. But after that, Zion got injured with 3:15 to go. And all of a sudden, he's at the game. He's in the locker room. Nobody knows what's happening. And then all of a sudden, the Lakers start taking over. LeBron starts attacking the paint because he knows Zion's not guarding him. He gets an easy bucket here, distributes another one there. And it was just a lot easier for LeBron to set up his teammates to get some easy shots. And then the Pelicans still showed some fight and showed some life. D'Angelo Russell ended that with a huge three with 1:15 to go. And after that, it was pretty much the foul game, and the Lakers held on. But what was interesting, though, is if Zion was healthy on that court, for the way Zion was playing, in my opinion, the Pelicans would have won that game. The Pelicans had all the momentum in that fourth quarter when Zion was there. It was a tie game before Zion got out of the game. And if Zion was in that game, I think the Pelicans would have won. It's a very, very interesting storyline, because, quite frankly, if you're the Lakers, do you want to play Denver? We'll discuss that a little bit later, but that's a little bit interesting. Could the Pelicans have been the ones into the playoffs? Could the Lakers have had an opportunity to potentially play an easier opponent, or lose to the Sacramento Kings and not make the playoffs at all? That would have been an interesting storyline. But ultimately, Zion got hurt. I'm not saying that the Pelicans could have done stuff better. Obviously, CJ McCollum and Brandon Ingram should have definitely played better in this basketball game if the Pelicans wanted to win. If they played better, the Pelicans probably would have absolutely won this basketball game, but of course they didn't. But the Pelicans really did have momentum, and it was a heartbreaker for the Pelicans losing Zion. And quite frankly, we really haven't seen Zion in the playoffs. We didn't really see him at all have some significant postseason play, and he showed it to us. Like, I know Zion has injury problems, and sometimes the fans get angry, and they're probably angry right now. But Zion did prove that he is a star with 40 points against one of the greats. I don't care how old he is. He's still one of the greats. He scored 40, and he proved that he is a star, and a star to come in the NBA. So if this is the Pelicans should not be mad at Zion. He absolutely dominated and was the only reason why the Pelicans were in that basketball game to start with. But it's a very interesting dynamic that could have changed the outcome of the game. But the Lakers did hold on and they did get the 7th seed. They had an amazing first half and a pretty solid third quarter as well, pushing the lead to 18. But they let it slip in the fourth quarter. They let the big lead slip. And that's because they got stagnant shooting the threes. Because remember, they're not the best 3-point shooting team in the league. And if the Lakers can get stagnant, that's one of their issues. Their offense becomes bad. They go on these scoring droughts. They can't find ways to get the ball in the basket, and they let other teams creep back in. That's happened a lot this season for the Lakers. That's happened in the past for the Lakers. So that could be a problem going into the Denver series. And we'll discuss that more as we preview that series later in the podcast. But the Pelicans do still have another chance. Zion will be out, though, because he did get that injury. And quite frankly, that just is an absolute heartbreaker for the Pelicans, having a pretty solid season with a chance to go to the playoffs, hosting the Sacramento Kings in this one. But it's leaning towards Sacramento potentially stealing and winning this game due to Zion being out, considering how CJ McCollum and Brandon Ingram played the last game. But who knows? The Pelicans could still win. But for now, considering the circumstances of Zion getting hurt that late into the game for how good he was playing, absolute heartbreaker for the New Orleans Pelicans. But let's move on to our second playing game, the 9-10 playing game. That was an elimination game here. The Sacramento Kings, the 9 seed, were hosting the 10 seed Golden State Warriors, and the Sacramento Kings absolutely dominated the Golden State Warriors. They shattered their playoff hopes, and maybe something else that we'll get into a little bit in our lights out segment for the Golden State Warriors. But right now it is all about the Sacramento Kings. The Sacramento Kings were ballistic from the 3-point line, making 18 out of 39 of their 3-point shots, 46% from the behind the arc. Absolutely incredible. In a 118-94 win. They won by 24 points to the Golden State Warriors. Absolutely incredible. Keegan Murray, don't even get me started about him. Keegan Murray, 32 points and 8 3-pointers. Keegan Murray had an absolute amazing game. And when Keegan Murray shoots the ball well, man, it is going to be hard to stop that guy. He is an absolute sniper from the 3-point line. And when he gets hot, he's one of those guys who is going to stay hot and absolutely light it up for a team on the offensive side of the ball. De'Aaron Fox also had a pretty good game there, 24 points, 6 assists, distributing the ball pretty well. He got to his mid-range pretty often in this basketball game and pretty much had nobody really contesting. He really beat the defenders on Golden State pretty easily, which was a little bit surprising, seeing how the Warriors didn't really show that major of a fight in the basketball game. Also, let's talk about someone else on the Sacramento Kings. Keon Ellis, man. Keon Ellis not really playing for the Sacramento Kings team. Then, of course, Malik Monk, Kevin Huerter get injured. Davion Mitchell isn't playing his best. So Keon Ellis has to be the one to start for the Sacramento Kings. Keon Ellis, we really, quite frankly, I didn't even hear of him. And maybe I heard a little bit about him last year, but not really this year. And all of a sudden, Keon Ellis comes in for the Sacramento team and has made an incredible impact. And he showed it to the rest of America last night, scoring 15 points on 5 of 8 shooting and 3 of 4 from the 3-point line. And excuse me, it wasn't last night. It was Tuesday night. I'm filming this on Thursday, and this will come out Friday at 5 p.m. Also, Sabonis had 16 points. He didn't really play his best game. Draymond did a solid job against Domantas Sabonis, as expected, because we know how good of a defender Draymond Green is. But considering how I wouldn't call Domantas Sabonis' performance mediocre, but under expectations, like for his standards. Like he didn't live up to his standards for that particular performance, and yet the Kings still won by 24. Yikes, if you're Golden State. And on the Golden State side, Curry had 22 points, really had a terrible first half, only attempting 4 shots. He was 3 for 7 from the 3-point line, but overall didn't really have one of those vintage Stephen Curry games. He still had a solid game for the Golden State Warriors, really one of the only people who could actually score on the offensive end for this team. But, I mean, there's nothing else to say. I mean, Curry tried his best all season long, and he was really carrying this Warriors team and being the leader of this team that had a lot of issues this season, which we will get into in a little bit. Moody and Kuminga, two young guys who actually had pretty solid games for this Golden State Warriors team. Both of them had 16 points. They played decently well, especially in that first half when the Warriors were in the basketball game. Jonathan Kuminga and Moses Moody really stood out to me in this basketball game, and the futures look bright for them in Golden State. And if you're Golden State, even with the loss, even with the disappointment and the potential end of something great, there are two very valuable young assets on your roster that you should be looking up to and saying those were great draft picks, because they were. It took some time for them to develop, but they really hit on those draft picks in Moody and Kuminga. And they both really tried to keep the Warriors afloat, considering the performances of somebody like Klay Thompson in this game, who in his potential last game as a Golden State Warrior shot 0 for 10 from the field, 0 for 6 from the three-point line, and scored 0 points. That's 0 points. I'll repeat that. Absolutely just a painful performance for Klay Thompson. And it's a really sad way to go out if you're Golden State, if you're Klay Thompson, scoring 0 points. And he's been really inconsistent this season, and it really showed this game. He really couldn't get any good shot to go, and it just sucks that he had that bad of a performance, and he just did not step up to the plate in this particular game, and it really cost the Warriors, considering if he would have put up a decent performance, the Warriors probably would have been in this basketball game and probably would have had multiple opportunities to win this basketball game, but Klay Thompson did not have a great performance for Golden State. Now a little bit into the game. In the first quarter, Keegan Murray really had a quick start, 3 for 4 from 3. He was absolutely blazing to start the game. He scored 11 of the Kings' first 13 points. The Warriors, particularly in this game, really didn't help themselves. They had 5 turnovers to start the game, 5 really quick turnovers, and most of the turnovers for Golden State were really unforced turnovers. They were sloppy passes, and it was just super easy for the Kings to cherry pick them. They got easy layups. They got transition points off the fast break. And even though the Kings necessarily didn't hit as many field goals, they still had a decent lead against the Golden State Warriors because of the Warriors' sloppy play and giving the ball up on the offensive side of the ball. And the Kings, especially with De'Aaron Fox as one of the quickest guards in the league, is definitely one of the best transition teams in the NBA. Early, I noticed when the game was competitive that the Warriors were trying to let Sabonis shoot. It was actually working. As I mentioned, Sabonis didn't have the best of games, and it was really working for a little bit, letting Sabonis shoot and not letting him get to the paint, scoring those easy buckets, and distributing to players around the court and getting that potential to get offensive rebounds. So I really like that game plan on Sabonis for Golden State, but ultimately, even though Sabonis was contained, they really didn't contain anybody else. As I mentioned, Fox got to his mid-range shot pretty easily. And something else as well, Golden State really got killed on the corner threes. Every single time, I feel like a Golden State Warrior would get beat off the dribble, whether that was Curry or Thompson or Wiggins, somebody or Moody or Kuminga. Somebody would get beaten off the dribble, or Pajemski as well. Somebody would get beaten off the dribble and kick. And it would just be the defense collapses. Now you've got to stop the guy who just beat the defender or also get an easy shot at the rim. The defense collapses in the paint, and it's an easy kick out to the left or the right corner. And that was killing Golden State all game long. And easy shots for the Sacramento Kings. And they hit him, which is part of the reason why they scored 46%. Part of that wasn't even because the Kings shot the lights out. It was because the Warriors were giving them the opportunity to shoot the lights out, because those threes were pretty wide open most of the ball game. And also something that the Warriors really struggled with were the offensive rebounds. Even though they stopped Sabonis from the mid-range, and getting in the paint, the Golden State Warriors really struggled on getting defensive rebounds, and the Kings got a lot of second chance opportunities. So even though the Warriors did actually get more shot attempts up, and I think made more shots than the Sacramento Kings, the Golden State Warriors just gave up so many offensive rebounds to the point where the Kings got easy second chance buckets, easy shots at the rim, easy kickouts, and it was just a brutal sighting for Golden State, as they really had a first quarter that wasn't even necessarily the Kings actually playing that great of a basketball game. It was the Golden State Warriors beating themselves up. And then in the second quarter, the Warriors continued to struggle offensively at the start. They turned the ball over a lot. The Kings fed off that. They gained the momentum. But as I said, Moses Moody, Jonathan Kuminga had great games. They made an impact off the bench, sparked a 7-0 Warriors run to cut the lead to 9 with 6:56 to go. And Kuminga also to end the half had his own 6-0 run, and he was attacking Domantas Sabonis on the paint, exposing Sabonis' weak defense. But still, the Warriors were still down 4 in the half, and Curry only took 4 shots in the half. Then in the second half, it just got absolutely disastrous for Golden State. And Curry tried to pick it up a little bit for the Golden State, which he did, and he hit some shots, but the Kings were absolutely dominating the same things. Fast break points, offensive rebounds, all of that just in a more quite obvious way in the second half. And like basically, I'm not really diving that deep into the second half because it's basically the first half, just way more dominant for the Sacramento Kings. And they just absolutely blew the doors open. They hit their three-point shots. They really controlled the pace of the game. And it was an absolute disaster for the Golden State Warriors in that second half. And the Kings absolutely deserve to win this game, and rightfully so. And they will have the opportunity to play the New Orleans Pelicans in New Orleans for the chance to play the Oklahoma City Thunder, who has not particularly had that much playoff experience. Not saying those two teams would have a shot at not like easily win that series, but I think it is a winnable series for one of those two teams, that whoever gets the 8 seed between those two teams, especially more Sacramento since Zion's injured, definitely a winnable series. Definitely one of the weaker 8 seeds that not 8 seeds, 1 seeds that we've had in the past couple of seasons. Now let's go on to the Eastern Conference play-in tournament. Let's start with the 7-8 game in Philadelphia, which in my opinion was the best game of the play-in tournament, where Nicholas Batum, my God, this man came out of nowhere off the bench for this Philadelphia 76ers team in the fourth quarter and helped lead a comeback win against the Miami Heat as they won 105-104 for the Philadelphia 76ers. Joel Embiid had 23 and 15 rebounds. Tyrese Maxey had 19 points and 6 assists. Batum had 20 points. Nicholas Batum, yes, the 36-year-old Nicholas Batum, the 15th season Batum, the guy that's been in the league for, I feel like, ages. And not only did he have 20 points, he had 17 of those in the fourth quarter, hitting 6 threes for the game, and 5 of those threes were in the fourth quarter. So you can just tell how dominant of a fourth quarter it was for Batum. But let's start with the early aspects of the game. But first, before we do that, let's go to the Miami Heat box score. For the Heat, it wasn't really the greatest of games for anybody for the Miami Heat. Butler had 19, 5 for 18 from the field. Hero had 25, but he shot 9 for 27 from the field and 4 for 14 from the three-point line. Bam only had 10 points. It got into some foul trouble early in the first quarter, but still inexcusable for that. Jaime Hawkins played pretty solid for Miami, scoring 15. But early in this game, something that I noticed was that Miami was really wearing down Philly with their zone defense. Miami was absolutely dominating the first half with their zone defense. They caused Philadelphia a lot of turnover issues. They caused Philadelphia to be stagnant. They caused Philadelphia to start panicking and rushing their shots. It was a really complete first half by Miami, and Miami really looked like they were going to win this game, especially late in that first quarter when they started getting the momentum. Jimmy Butler was going to the free throw line, and he looked like playoff Jimmy. Playoff Jimmy was playing solid. The Heat were playing that solid zone defense that we've seen on Philadelphia before. And then all of a sudden, with 1.1 seconds to go in the first quarter, Butler gets a steal, attacks the basket on Kelly Oubre, and Jimmy Butler is collapsed on the ground. And he is on the ground in a lot of pain. And it is something that, as a Heat fan, including myself, you just got to hold your breath for, because Jimmy Butler, as we know, for a Miami Heat team who made the finals 2 out of the past 4 seasons prior to this one, the conference finals 3 out of 4, is the heart and soul of that team. And he's really been the spark to all these magical Miami Heat playoff runs. So for the fact that Jimmy Butler was hurt is just an absolute brutal loss for Miami. Even if they do win their second playing game and you have to play Boston, their chances go significantly down. They were probably most likely not going to win that series in the first place, but now with Butler, it just the odds are just very, very slim at this point. Even if they beat Chicago, and who knows, they may not even beat Chicago. But going back to this game, as Butler got injured, what was incredible to me and what shows Butler's character and what shows Butler's passion and commitment to playing the game of basketball, he played through the injury. He shouldn't have been out there. Like, he looked like he was definitely hurt. He was sitting in the corner a lot in the second half, and he just looked very limited out there. Wasn't really himself, giving the ball up. Best defender wasn't really on him anymore because the Philadelphia 76ers knew that Jimmy Butler was very limited, and just really relying on someone like Tyler Hero, who we really haven't seen in the playoffs since 2020, is inconsistent at times. Bam was really having a bad game, and you're relying on someone such as Tyler Hero and maybe some other guys like Jaime Jaquez, Caleb Martin, who are also inconsistent from the field. Because remember, this Miami team is not the greatest of offensive teams, and they already had Terry Rozier out. Duncan Robinson didn't play, even though he was available. He's still ramping back up from his injury. So this Miami Heat team is not the greatest offensive team to start with, and when you put Jimmy Butler out of that lineup, it's just an absolute disaster for them on the offensive side of the ball. And it really ended up killing them in the second half. And one of the reasons why Philly came back. Not necessarily saying that's the whole reason, but that is definitely part of the reason, because Miami in the first half looked to be in control of that game. And what was interesting, Spo said at the end of the game for Miami, that Butler's injury started lingering and lingering more as the game progressed. And we definitely saw that, because Butler, even though he was injured, he was still looking full speed in the second quarter. But as the game got further in, it really started to linger for Butler, and it really started to give the rock off to other players on his team. So that's very unfortunate for Jimmy Butler, and a brutal blow for the Miami Heat, especially considering what they've done in the playoffs the past couple of years. But they really had the injury bug this year. They've had the injury bug a lot of years, but it's really bad luck considering how much the entire league loves to see playoff Jimmy just shock the world, including myself. So that's a brutal injury. But back to the game now. As I said, Philly really struggled in the first half, but in the second half, they really started to get momentum because of two Caleb Martin missed free throws, which was funny because they got free chicken, and all of a sudden the crowd started ramping up. Batum hit a 3 in the third quarter, and then I think it was a Buddy Hield layup, and that was a 7-point swing. Instead of Martin hitting 2 free throws when Miami was up 11 to extend the lead to 13, Philly cut the lead down to 6, which was a 7-0 run, and a 7-point swing there for Philadelphia, which was a huge reason in getting that game back to single digits and a manageable game for the Philadelphia 76ers. And it was just a crazy game for Philadelphia. Like, in the first half, Tobias Harris was getting booed on because he missed 4 layups in a row. I mean, I understand you miss 4 layups in a row, but you're booing and you're booing and you're booing, and then all of a sudden they come back, you're cheering. I guess that's the Philadelphia crowd for you in a nutshell right there, because I'm not saying Philadelphia fans are bad. I think they're actually one of the best fan bases in the league, but they can be really brutal sometimes. And when Tobias Harris missed those 4 layups, man, it was absolutely brutal for him getting those boos, especially at home in a playing game that was not over, as we clearly saw Philadelphia came back and won the game, but still absolute madness for Tobias Harris getting booed like that. But back to the fourth quarter, as the fourth quarter really progressed, it was pretty much back and forth for a little bit, but what was interesting was Miami made the pushes. Miami kept on scoring, and they kept on putting the pressure on Philadelphia. And you know who responded? Nicholas Batum. Every single time Miami extended the lead a little bit, every time Philly was giving up a basket on the defensive side of the ball, Nicholas Batum would come back and keep Philadelphia in the game. Shot after shot after shot, Nicholas Batum was not missing from the three-point line. He shot 5 for 5 from the three-point line. He really kept Philadelphia in that ball game and is the biggest reason why Philadelphia won this game. Easily, by far, one of his best games in probably the last 7 years for Nicholas Batum, because it it's just absolutely shocking. But it also tells you any player, any role player on any given day can be the reason why you win a playoff series, because role players are crucial. They have good games, and a role player like Nicholas Batum really hasn't been that super consistent this season, really hasn't had a standout performance for this Philadelphia 76ers team, and that just happened. Role players are very crucial for playoff teams, and when one of them pops off, they can really help you control a game and eventually gain momentum and control a playoff series. And for this case, for Philadelphia, making the playoffs and getting momentum going into the playoffs before they play the New York Knicks. So Nicholas Batum, just crazy props. And then at the end of the game, obviously it was tied. Embiid started hitting some and-ones. Miami responded with a couple of threes and a couple of baskets. And then Embiid found Kelly Oubre for the and-one, which put Philly up 3. Tyler Hero had an opportunity to tie it, but guess who blocked the shot? No other than Nicholas Batum, of course, because that's the kind of game he was having on both sides of the ball. Jimmy Butler was out of the game at this point. And then after that, it was pretty much the foul game, but Philadelphia hit all of their free throws. And after that, Philadelphia pretty much won the game. They almost made an interesting mistake at the end of the game. Luckily, there was 0.3 seconds on the clock, but when Embiid was inbounding the ball, I don't know who was inbounding the ball for Philly, but like Embiid or Maxey, I don't know which one, kicked the ball out of bounds. Luckily, there was 0.3 seconds on the clock, because if there was a second on the clock there would have been at least 0.7 or 0.6 on the clock for Miami to get a decent look when they were down 1 to potentially steal that game. So that was a little bit interesting to end the game for Philadelphia. But there was 0.3, so any touch would automatically end the game, which it did, and Philadelphia won. But my key takeaway from this game, other than Butler getting injured and Nicholas Batum popping off, Embiid did not look 100% healthy. Embiid was not 100% healthy, and that's going to be a concern going into the Knicks series. We're going to preview that series in a little bit, but that is 100% a concern going into that series right there. And he just, at points during the game, especially in the first, second, and third quarter, just the mobility wasn't there. He really didn't look like himself, and he definitely is not going to be 100% going into that Knicks series, and probably further on, because even if Philadelphia does pull it off against the Knicks, each series has a wear and tear on your body because you're playing against more physical, more tougher players, better players. The pressure's up, the defense gets more intense. Your body's going to wear and tear, and Embiid is not going to be 100% healthy in the stretch for Philadelphia. So it's going to be very interesting monitoring his health throughout the playoffs. But let's go on to the next game, though. Quick one here, because this was a blowout. The Chicago Bulls ended up beating and eliminating the Atlanta Hawks 131-116 as Kobe White got a career high, which is technically not a career high because playing games don't count in the stat book. It just doesn't count in the record books for some reason. I don't know why. I think it should count toward postseason stats, but don't ask me what the NBA feels that this play-in tournament that they love desperately and that's really helping them gain revenue can't even count as real stats. That's another topic for another day, but that makes absolutely no sense for me. But at the end of the day, Kobe White, man, 42 points, 6 assists, and 9 rebounds. What a game for Mr. Most Improved, potentially. And honestly, I really was leaning toward Maxey getting this award, but Kobe White, man, he's really making a case for it. He is really making a case for it. And it's hard to pick against Kobe White considering what he just showed us right now. I know regular season ends after, award voting starts at the immediate conclusion of the regular season. But look, if I had a vote right now, after this game, that might have changed. I'd probably still lean toward Maxey, but it would definitely make the debate a little bit more interesting just for me personally. Kobe White, man, absolutely incredible game for him. And he shot 15 of 21 from the field, which absolutely efficient numbers from there. DeMar had a solid game as well for Chicago, 22, 9, and 6. Nikola Vucevic as well with 24 and 12. On the Atlanta side, DeJounte Murray had 30 points, 6 assists, and 7 rebounds. Trae Young had 22 points and 10 assists on 4 for 12 from shooting, and Capella had 22 points and 17 rebounds on 11 for 15 shooting. First of all, in this game, it was pretty much for the first half a game of runs. It really reminded me of that Sacramento Golden State game. It was really a game of runs in the first half before Chicago, and just like Sacramento did, blow the doors out of the 10 seed in the second half. Chicago, to the start of the game, really started fast. DeMar scored 10 in the first quarter as Chicago, quite frankly, shot the lights out. But you can't really say that's that big of an accomplishment because, no offense to Atlanta, but Atlanta's defense is just absolutely terrible. They're letting people get career highs left as right. Hey, if you want a career high, you better get ready and get ramped up to play in Atlanta defense, because I'm telling you, man, that defense is absolutely brutal. I just don't understand how ridiculous that defense is. But back to the game. As I said, DeMar got off to a quick start. The Bulls got off to a quick start, and they were up 40-22 after the first quarter, and they had an 18-4 run to end the period in the last 4 minutes after a back-and-forth start. So a dominant first quarter by Chicago. Then in the second quarter, Atlanta started out strong. DeJounte Murray had a solid second quarter, and Atlanta scored the first 14 points of the period as they cut the lead to 6. And DeJounte Murray got 8 of those 14 in the first 3 minutes of the quarter. So absolutely incredible job by DeJounte Murray to push the Hawks to get back in this ball game. What's also interesting about that second quarter is Chicago went on another run. As I said, it was a game of runs. Right when Atlanta pushed it to 6, Chicago went on another run, lead back to 14. Then Atlanta went on another run, pushed it back to 6 on half. It was back and forth runs. And it was just a high-scoring, high offensive first half, and it really didn't look like any team had the advantage on the other, even though Chicago had that slightly to go into the half. It looked pretty even, but then in the second half, all of a sudden, Kobe White in the first 3 minutes scores 12 points in the third quarter. Chicago starts it off on a 17-2 run, and this time Atlanta doesn't respond with the run, and Chicago goes on another huge run, and they absolutely dominate the Atlanta Hawks. And there's nothing really to say about the second half, because just like the Kings game, it was just an absolute domination by Chicago in the second half. Kobe White absolutely dominated. Every time Atlanta tried to make that extra shot, tried to gain some momentum, Kobe White would just ruin it for Atlanta, because Kobe White was hitting shot after shot after shot, which, again, it's not that hard to do against Atlanta's defense, but you still got to give Kobe White credit. I mean, a career high is a career high, and he has been absolutely playing his best basketball of his career. Remember that Saddiq Bey and Onyeka Okongwu were out for this Atlanta team, but there's still no excuse to giving up 131 points to a Bulls offense that, quite frankly, really isn't the best offense in the league. And we'll see what happens in Miami as Chicago now goes to face the Miami Heat in what will be a winner-go-home game to have the wonderful privilege of facing the 64-18 Boston Celtics. So good luck to those teams. That'll be an exciting game Friday, and it's a little more intriguing considering the Butler injury, especially since probably if Butler was there, Miami would be considerable favorites. Now this makes it a little more interesting there. So we'll get into that a little bit later. But first, I want to talk about the two teams that lost in what has been our segment of the year where we talk about eliminated teams, lights out. And we got two teams that were the 10 seeds eliminated in the play. And let's first start with the team that we just mentioned in the Atlanta Hawks. The Atlanta Hawks season is officially done after they did lose to the Chicago Bulls 131-116. This season, for free agents, Saddiq Bey, Vec Krejci, who played a solid season for Atlanta considering the injuries, Seth Lundy, Trent Forrest, Dylan Winder, they're all restricted free agents for the Atlanta Hawks. Garrison Matthews has a team option that the Atlanta Hawks can exercise, and Wesley Matthews is the only unrestricted free agent for this team. Obviously, we know that the big question for this Atlanta Hawks team is what's going to happen with Trae Young? What's going to happen with DeJounte Murray? Clearly, this backcourt experiment has been an absolute failure. So what's next? My opinion is I think you've got to trade Trae Young. Trae Young is not a number one player, and Trae Young is not a player you need to build a franchise around. I give him some leniency because he hasn't had an all-star caliber. He hasn't played with another all-star in his career. DeJounte Murray is an all-star caliber player, but with DeJounte on the court, DeJounte wasn't an all-star. So Trae Young really hasn't played with any all-star in his career. other than maybe an old Vince Carter for that matter. But other than that, it's pretty much been Trae Young. So you got to give him some leniency there. But at the end of the day, Trae Young cannot lead a basketball team. Consider this. When Trae Young was out, Hawks won 12-10. Their defense was dramatically improved. The Hawks were better without Trae Young. So what do you have to do? You have to cash out on Trae Young. You've got to get the best offer possible. You've got to get young players. You've got to get draft picks, and you've got to trade, and you've got to try to get as many young guys as possible and build around DeJounte Murray potentially, or maybe trade both. Who knows? You could trade both, but definitely number one priority, getting rid of Trae Young because he hurts this team. He's not a number one player, and he's not a guy to build around. One trade that I would probably like to see, I mentioned this in my podcast last week with Max, that I really like a trade with the Spurs so they can trade Trae Young to the Atlanta Hawks, because my logic is if you're going to do that, you're going to get your draft picks back that you sent to San Antonio for that DeJounte Murray trade. And if you can do that, you can control your own draft, which is very important because it's easier to decide whether you're what direction you're choosing. For example, like Brooklyn, who doesn't control their own draft picks, just like Atlanta, no matter what happens, they can't, even if their team's just so bad right now, but it still doesn't matter because they do not have their draft picks. So Atlanta, probably, if I were them, I would really consider trading him to San Antonio and trying to get the draft picks back. And it would be a pretty good fit with Victor Wembanyama, and I think that pairing would work, even though the defense would be absolutely brutal for Trae Young and the Spurs. Even though Victor's a defensive freak, the Spurs overall are just god-awful on the defensive side of the ball. I still really like that pairing, and I think that pick and roll would be fun to watch in San Antonio. And as I mentioned, the Hawks with Trae Young, just not good. 2021 was their best year. They made the conference finals, but other than that, it really has just been nothing for the Hawks. 500 team. They lost in the first round in 2022 to Miami in 5. They put up a decent fight against Boston as the 7th seed in 2023 last season, but they did ultimately lose in 6. And I mean, there's just an average team. There's nothing else you can say. This Atlanta team is average, and they're going to have to choose a direction. And clearly, as we can see, that direction is not contention. That direction is a rebuild, getting your draft picks, controlling your own draft, and moving on from Trae Young because, quite frankly, Atlanta has played better with him. One thing that I do like about the Hawks, though, Jalen Johnson, I mentioned this last week as well. Jalen Johnson has played absolutely incredible for this Atlanta Hawks team. You've got to give the man some props. I, quite frankly, have really enjoyed seeing his improvement and him thriving with the Atlanta Hawks team this season. Other than that, it's been really not a lot of excitement in Atlanta. I also do like Okongwu as well. I personally, for years, ever since they drafted Okongwu, I think it should have been time to give him the starting role over Clint Capella. Obviously, Clint Capella had a solid game against Chicago, but overall, Onyeka Okongwu was probably Clint Capella by starting is hurting Onyeka Okongwu's development. So I think it is a necessity to probably trade Clint Capella this offseason and let Okongwu start at center. And maybe potentially draft another big guy to pair with Onyeka Okongwu, or maybe a big guy off the bench to develop as well. But they probably are going to draft a guard, not a point guard, but a shooting guard if they trade Trae Young to surround DeJounte Murray with that Atlanta team. So that's my take on Atlanta, man. It's going to be a tough decision, but ultimately I think they should pull the trigger on trading Trae Young, and I think they should do it to San Antonio because I think that would be a win-win for both teams, and Atlanta really needs to control their draft in the future because if not, they are going to be average or below average for years to come. Now let's move on, though, to a team that has been dominant, unlike the Atlanta Hawks, for years, and that is the Golden State Warriors, who absolutely got smoked the other day against the Sacramento Kings, and now their season has officially ended. Their unrestricted free agents include Dario Saric, Jerome Robinson, and Usman Gruba. Lester Quinones is a restricted free agent, and Gary Payton has a player option this offseason, but I assume since he was injured most of the season, will probably accept that player option. And of course, for the Golden State Warriors, the number one question we have is the dynasty over? Is the dynasty Is the big three of Stephen Curry, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green finally going to end, considering Klay Thompson has not played his best basketball and he could really use a change of scenery? And I literally forgot to mention the most important part. Klay Thompson is an unrestricted free agent for this Golden State Warriors team, of course. Klay Thompson is the unrestricted free agent, and he can go anywhere he desires. And as I just mentioned, is this Warriors dynasty over? It's been a really long run for this Golden State Warriors team, and quite frankly, they've really maximized this team in the years with the Splash Brothers. I quite frankly haven't seen in my lifetime anything like the Golden State Warriors, and they were very, very good for a very, very long time. But right now, Draymond had his issues with Jordan Poole, had issues this season, getting suspended multiple times. Klay Thompson's just not there anymore. Andrew Wiggins has been inconsistent. I don't know if it's due to his personal issues or what, but Andrew Wiggins has had the worst season of his career. And Stephen Curry, even though he is somebody who is great, he's not at that MVP level anymore. So the Warriors are going to have to make tough decisions. And I'm going to say this, and people are not going to like it. And I know some players like a Dirk or a Dwayne Wade are really some of those guys who like to stay with the same team for their whole career. Actually, even Dwayne Wade did, and he went to Chicago and Cleveland. But a guy like Dirk, a guy like Kobe, who stayed with that same organization for a majority of their career. I'm going to say this not in spite of them, but opposite to their philosophy. Quite frankly, the Warriors need to trade Steph Curry. I said it. The Golden State Warriors need to trade Steph Curry and do right by the man. Here's why. Where are you going? Where are you going if you're Golden State? I don't see any path, any guy who you can possibly get. Name any guy, any single player that's going to be on the trade block or free agency this offseason. Any guy. Who? Who can the Warriors trade for that is going to make them contenders, especially in a Western Conference who has an up-and-rising Oklahoma City team who is the 1 seed now, and they will be good for years, an up-and-rising young in Minnesota Timberwolves team who will be good for years. Of course, you've got Denver, who's not going away anytime soon with the Joker. You've got the Dallas Mavericks with Luka Doncic, who's not going away anytime soon. You've got currently the Phoenix Suns, who have KD, Booker, and Beal at the present moment. You've got the Clippers, who have Kawhi, Paul George, Harden at the present moment. You've got the Lakers, who have LeBron and AD at the present moment. There is nobody that is going to be available unless some major shocking trade request happens that we never saw coming that can help this Warriors team win. And what are you going to do with Curry? Just let him sit there, let him have his 25-point games, make a game-winning shot once in a while, be this 10 seed losing in the play-in tournament? No, you have to choose a direction. I'm one of these guys. If I'm a GM, you cannot sit in the middle of the pack. You cannot be one of those middle-of-the-pack teams, and you're going to have to choose a direction if you're Golden State. Your guys are getting older, and quite frankly, there's just nothing they can do to get that much better. So I think Golden State needs to try to potentially maybe commit to a rebuild, trade Curry, get all you can. Because remember, Curry's value is going to dissipate. He is going to get older, and every single year he gets older, his value is going to dissipate because he is going to be out of the league sooner. Not saying out of the league as he'll get waived or cut, out of the league being he will retire sooner. Of course, that's what I mean. But the Warriors are going to have to make tough decisions, and I think they may have to consider trading Steph Curry. I think Klay Thompson's going to walk. I do not expect him to resign with Golden State. I don't know what team Klay Thompson will go to, but I don't think it will be the Golden State Warriors. I think Draymond Green needs a fresh new start because the whole situation with Golden State this year has really been deteriorating that team and their season. And quite frankly, there is nothing to do or say that can really fix his attitude problems. And I think he needs a fresh start and on maybe a contending team. Andrew Wiggins, I don't even know what's up to him. Yeah, I don't get it. Is it personal reasons? Who knows? But Wiggins is just not being that guy. And quite frankly, the four guys You got Moody, you've got Kuminga, you've got Pajemski, and you've got Trace Jackson Davis. Those four are solid players to build around. Trust me, solid players. And if you can get draft picks on top of that for your guys, maybe Klay Thompson goes in the sign and trade. Maybe you trade Draymond, get a first round pick. Trade Steph Curry, get 3 or 4 first round picks. It's going to start adding up if you're Golden State. And it's just not working anymore, and they're going to have to commit to something, contending or rebuilding, and I think the best path for Golden State is to rebuild. Maybe Curry can go along with the rebuild and just end his career just like Kobe on a rebuilding team, but if you're Steph Curry, you want to win titles. You want to win championships. You want to build your legacy and continue to build your legacy and solidify yourself as a top 10 player of all time in the game of basketball. So I think Curry needs to really think about what this Warriors team is going to be, because I seriously think that Curry needs potentially another opportunity to win a title to build his legacy. And I don't think that opportunity will be present in Golden State anymore. It's tough to say, but all good things, the Splash Brothers, this dynasty run for the Warriors, all good things come to an end. And the Warriors are going to have to make those decisions. And I think it starts with trading Steph Curry. But let's go on to the play-in tournament games that are going to be tonight as you watch this. First, let's start with the Eastern Conference, where we've got the Chicago Bulls playing the Miami Heat. Of course, the Chicago Bulls won their game 131-116 against the Hawks, and the Heat fell 105-104 in a heartbreaking loss to the Philadelphia 76ers. Jimmy Butler will be out for this game. That is 100% confirmed. Alex Caruso for Chicago is questionable to be in this game. He had an ankle sprain. Signs, according to Shams, are leaning toward him playing, but you still don't know. There could still be potential swelling on that game day, so that will be a game-time decision for Alex Caruso, but he is leaning toward playing in. Now, this matchup, in my opinion, I thought was going to be a Miami blowout. Now, especially with Jimmy Butler out, this gets really, really interesting considering the way Chicago has been playing lately, because Chicago had a rough start to the season. They were 5-12. I forgot what they were, 5-14, but they've been over 500 since. They've won. They've been 2 games over 500 since. Chicago hasn't been that bad of a team. For the Zach LaVine injury this year, as well as Patrick Williams, for this disaster with Lonzo Ball, Chicago has not been that bad. And Chicago has a major opportunity to steal one on the road here, to have the opportunity to play the Boston Celtics. Of course, we start with DeMar DeRozan. DeMar DeRozan, especially with Jimmy Butler not being able to guard him now, he will probably be guarded by someone like Jaime Jaquez Jr. Not saying Jaquez is a bad defender. I think he's an above average defender, quite frankly. But DeRozan should be able to get his shot opportunities in this particular basketball game. Kobe White guarded by Tyler Hero, or I mean, I don't even know who else is going to really guard the man with Butler out. Like, who else on this team is going to maybe Caleb Martin guards Kobe White? I don't know what the matchups will be for the Chicago team. Maybe Caleb Martin guards DeRozan. I just don't know. I really don't know what the matchups are going to be, because Spo maybe could figure something out, but I quite frankly don't know who's going to be guarding DeMar DeRozan or Kobe White for that matter on this Miami Heat team. I think the matchups are going to be difficult for Chicago, as Miami's a great defensive team, and every time they play a basketball game, it seems to be like the NBA from 5 years ago and not the current NBA. So Chicago could have problems scoring the ball, but of course for Miami, they could have their problems as well, considering they've always had problems scoring the ball. And especially now with Jimmy Butler out, considering Terry Rozier is already ruled out for this game. Duncan Robinson is still ramping back up from his injury. Bam Adebayo, he's been on a slump recently. Tyler Hero's inconsistent. Miami's going to need to find ways from somebody, some way to score if they want the opportunity to get some extra games and make the postseason once again. Because if not, Chicago will win this basketball game. People have to step up for Miami. They've got to have that next man up mentality. It's a brutal injury with Butler. Absolutely brutal. He's the heart and soul of that team. I mentioned that earlier. But somebody's going to have to step up, and it's going to start with Jaime Jaquez Jr., as I mentioned. He usually starts when Butler's out, which was quite frequently in this regular season. But I think Jaquez is ready for the test. I think Jaquez, he had a solid game against Philly the other day. He scored 15 points. It was a +8. He really was efficient for the Miami Heat the other day. And if Jaquez can take some more production, if Jovic can take some more production, he quite frankly didn't have a great game. He only scored 5 points, only took 2 shots. I think he needs to start getting himself more assertive, especially with Butler out. And it'll be interesting to see what Tyler Hero does, considering that he didn't have the best of games against Philadelphia. He had a pretty decent fourth quarter, but other than that, he shot terribly from the field, 33%. So it's going to be interesting for them. For Chicago's aspect, I think they've got a pretty solid matchup, especially if Caruso plays on Tyler Hero. I think Vucevic has played particularly well against Bam in his career, especially remembering him playing with Orlando. He's played particularly well against Bam, and Chicago really have caused Miami some problems. Like Miami, really in the past few years has been dominated by Chicago in the regular season play. They split 2-2 this year, and last season I think it was 3-0 if I'm not mistaken, Chicago. So Chicago has played particularly well against Miami in this certain situation. And I would say Chicago should be coming in here feeling to and really good considering how they've been playing lately. And we know they want it. They lost last year in the same scenario, same playing game, had the opportunity to make the playoffs as the 8th seed. They had the lead most of the game, and they lost to this Miami team. Of course, the situations and circumstances were different, as Chicago had Zach LaVine and Miami had Butler, but now they're both out for this particular game. Chicago's hungry, and Chicago wants revenge. Chicago will want this game, and they are going to fight to the end for this game. So Miami's going to have to find a way to respond. And Miami particularly plays good with a guy being out. Of course, Butler's a huge hole, but Miami's usually good at that next man up mentality. So it's going to be very interesting to see this matchup, considering that we thought Chicago and Atlanta were probably going to not make the playoffs and not have really any shot at making the playoffs. But now with Butler out, it really changes and turns the tides here for Chicago and giving them a legitimate chance to steal the 8th seed from Miami in this certain matchup. But here's the interesting aspect. This particular basketball game. Do you go all in, considering that you're going to play 36 hours later if you win in Boston at 1 p.m. You're playing this game at 7 on a Sunday. You're ending at 10:30. You're probably not going to be out of media till midnight on Saturday, and you're going to have 36 hours to get prepped for that Boston game. So are you going to go all in? Are you going to play Kobe White like Chicago did 41 minutes or 44 minutes in a win or go home situation? If you're Miami, are you going to play Bam 40 to 44 minutes, Hero 40 to 44 minutes? It's a very interesting dynamic that I think will be very interesting to watch in this particular basketball game. And for my keys of the game, I think quite frankly, Chicago just needs to find ways to give Kobe White the ball. I think Chicago needs to find ways to have create offense, because they're not the best offensive team, but when they score the ball, they've proven that they can score the ball. And if they can score the ball a decent amount, considering Miami's lack of efficiency on the offensive side of the ball, I think Chicago will be at a major advantage in this basketball game. And a key for Miami, man, Tyler Hero, man, you've got to be the guy. Tyler Hero has to step up and shoot efficiently from the field, be the point guard, be the distributor, get to the field goal line, set up Bam for easy ones. Tyler Hero must play better than a guy like Kobe White in order for Chicago to win this basketball game. Bam must play better than Vucevic. And Jaquez must be able to contain DeMar DeRozan in order for Miami to win this basketball game. And it's not going to be easy, but the star players for Miami are going to have to step up. And we didn't see it last night in Philadelphia. So are we going to see it in this game, especially considering they're going to get more touches and more opportunities in this particular matchup? My pick for this matchup, it's ultimately really, really tough because I really think that Chicago has a legitimate chance in this basketball game because Miami's vulnerabilities. And quite frankly, it's really hard not to pick Chicago, but I still think Miami's got a little bit of fight left in them. And I think Miami is going to step up to the plate. Remember, this game is at home, not in Chicago. Even though Miami hasn't played particularly well at home, Chicago has not played good on the road this season. And I think Miami has that next man up mentality. And I think they're going to have a sense of urgency. And I think Spo's going to know that this particular basketball game may be tough for them. I think Miami will still find a way to pull it out at the end. It'll be close and it'll be a good game, quite frankly. I'm excited for the game. I'm still going to take Miami in that one. Let's move on to the next playing game where we have in the West for the right to play the number 1 seed Oklahoma City Thunder, the number 9 seed Kings traveling to the number 8 seed New Orleans Pelicans. Remember, Zion Williamson will be out for this game for the Pelicans. Of course, for Sacramento, as I mentioned, Malik Monk, Kevin Huerter out for the season, essentially for the Sacramento Kings. So they will not be available to suit up in this game. And of course, the dynamic becomes the Pelicans had a major opportunity to get in the playoffs with Zion against the Lakers. Now he's hurt. Now the Kings are coming into town with a huge momentum win by 24 against Golden State with a pretty much fully healthy star core of Fox, Sabonis, and Murray. They're all healthy and good to go. You've got the Pelicans here with Zion, who's out, McCollum and Brandon Ingram, who just showed inconsistencies in the last game. And that just is very shaky to me if you're the New Orleans Pelicans right off the jump. And as a Pelicans fan, you should be very concerned about potentially falling out from being the first 7 seed, actually, I think, ever in the play-in tournament, quite frankly, to lose 2 playing games at home and drop to the lottery. I think that would be the first time in history, if I'm not mistaken, for a 7 seed to lose the play-in tournament. But what's interesting in this game is who's going to guard Fox. McCollum, he's not that quick. He's not that flashy, quick guard to really hang with a guy like De'Aaron Fox. Maybe potentially if you're New Orleans, maybe you can start Jose Alvarado to put him on De'Aaron Fox because I think he'll provide good defense. He has the quickness, the lateral speed, lateral quickness to hang in with the De'Aaron Fox. I think he could provide some spark and energy for the New Orleans Pelicans in this game, particularly without Zion. I also think that for Sabonis, I think Valanciunas, he played good against AD. Can he do it again against a guy like Sabonis as well? Because that would be a huge, huge factor in why the Pelicans could potentially still win this basketball game, even with Zion Williamson off the floor. You've also, for the Sacramento Kings, for the New Orleans Pelicans side, I think Fox is comfortable with guarding McCollum, and I think Harrison Barnes is quite frankly comfortable with guarding a guy like Brandon Ingram, and maybe Keegan Murray gets on that assignment too, ultimately. But I'm going to do this game a little bit faster because we've got still a couple more stuff to do, and we're running out of time here. But ultimately, the key for Sacramento in this game is to just limit New Orleans offensive rebounds and second chance points, because if New Orleans gets those, considering how Sacramento plays on the offensive side of the ball and they get opportunities to catch up, that will be a kiss of death for the Sacramento Kings. And Sacramento cannot let that happen considering Zion's out. They should have a huge advantage on the boards, and they should not let Jonas Valanciunas and Larry Nance Jr. out-rebound 2 guys in Sabonis and Keegan Murray, who we know are capable of rebounding the ball. And the key for New Orleans, man, it's pretty simple. Brandon Ingram, CJ McCollum, show up, show out, play and prove that last game was bad, like just a bad game. Don't get benched in the fourth quarter. Show up and play your hardest and actually be the star players that you need to be for this New Orleans Pelicans team. Because again, I'm going to say it. I'm not picking one of these 2 teams against Oklahoma City. I'm not doing that. Do I think there's a chance one of these teams could potentially pull off an upset and win this series? Absolutely. 100%. I think one of these teams probably has like a 15 to 20% chance of pulling off the upset, rather in the Eastern Conference. Whoever wins that's going to have like a 2% chance, maybe like even less than that. So I think there's definitely chances for one of these teams to upset a young and experienced Oklahoma City team. So I think you've got to play. You've got to play hard. And I think there's a lot to play for here for an opportunity to have a 7-game playoff series and go win as an 8th seed, which we saw last year. So it's quite frankly possible for one of these teams to shock the world and upset a 1 seed. It's quite frankly possible. And this game is really important for both of these teams' mentality going into the offseason as well. Making a playoff berth comparing to missing the playoffs, considering the regular seasons that these teams had to start and then losing games down the stretch. That is rough for both of these organizations. So it's a huge game for both. Ultimately, in this ball game, in this contest, though, because Zion's out and because the Kings really are coming off a huge win against Golden State and has momentum going into this basketball game, I'm going to be taking the Sacramento Kings in this one. And I think I'm probably in like a 10-point game. I don't think it's going to be that close. I don't think it's going to be a super blowout, but the way the Kings have been playing, way the Kings have the momentum going into this basketball game, and just because Zion's injured, it's just you have to take Sacramento in this situation. There's really nothing else to it. Now let's move on to the playoffs, where we will preview the 7-2 matchups. Let's start in the Eastern Conference with the play-in tournament winners, Philadelphia 76ers, going to the Mecca on Saturday to play the New York Knickerbockers. New York Knicks are in business as the number 2 seed in the Eastern Conference. First of all, Knicks, you got to give them a shout out, man, because they have literally had so many injury bugs this season. From Julius Randle, even Brunson's hurt a little bit. DiVincenzo's injured. OG Anunoby, Isaiah Hartenstein. Everybody has been injured for this Knicks team. Yet, here they are, sitting at the 2 seed, having home court advantage through at least the second round, and if Boston falls, through the Eastern Conference. Very, very impressive for the New York Knicks. Jalen Brunson looking like an MVP candidate out there. You could make the argument he could be on your All-NBA first-team ballot. I have him on my second team, but he is my best second-team player. He is 6th overall. Like, if there was somebody like potentially who got injured on the first team, I would put Brunson on the first team. I have him 6th in my All-NBA teams, which I will reveal to you in another episode. And he's just been lights out for this New York Knicks team, man. What a signing by the New York Knicks, getting Jalen Brunson for that price. Absolutely one of the, if not the greatest free agent signing in New York Knicks history. And now it's go time for the Knicks. You lost in the second round last year to a Miami Heat team that was thirsty and hungry. But now you have the opportunity to prove that the Knicks belong in the conversation to win. Yes, win the Eastern Conference and make the NBA Finals. They need to make a statement against a Philadelphia team who, quite frankly, is not the healthiest and really not at their full strength either, with Anthony Melton being out and with Joel Embiid obviously being vulnerable and looking not conditioned enough to play. But it still shows a statement, because I'm not degrading the Knicks if they beat the Sixers because of the injury of Embiid, but it's still a pretty impressive win. It's still the Philadelphia 76ers. They are not realistically a 7 seed. They are probably a 3 to 4 seed, maybe even a 2 seed. They were 31-8 with Joel Embiid on the court. That is not 7 seed material. That 7 in front of their name is not really what they truly are. So it is a tough draw for the New York Knicks. But I think the New York Knicks have an opportunity to show the world that they are legitimate contenders in the Eastern Conference. And DiVincenzo for the New York Knicks has been absolutely incredible. I don't think I've ever seen somebody all of a sudden become this like role player to this crucial player for the New York Knicks. He really, really, really all of a sudden just started hitting threes, shooting the lights out for this New York Knicks team, becoming like this 10-point per game role player to this 20-point per game superstar for the New York Knicks. Absolutely incredible resurgence by him. Deuce McBride, absolute insanity for him on the defensive side of the ball and on the offensive side of the ball as well. considering that Deuce McBride was not in the rotation for the New York Knicks. Then they traded quickly. They had a backup point guard role open now, obviously, because they traded quickly and Barrett. They got OG Anunoby, so one spot was open, and Miles McBride filled that, and he is filling that to perfection for this New York Knicks team. Good call by Thibodeau to give that man an opportunity and for him to absolutely deliver on that opportunity. Of course, the New York Knicks traded for OG Anunoby, as I just mentioned. They are like I don't even know their record with him. What it's like 15-0. I don't not 15-0, like 15-2. Like I don't even their record's insane with OG Anunoby. And OG Anunoby is a great defender, and he can potentially cause some issues for small forwards, and he is one that not only can provide on the defensive end. He's a 3-and-D player, man. That guy OG can shoot the ball. OG is a shooter. He can shoot the ball and hit threes for a New York Knicks team that relies more evidently on their defense rather than their offense. Then they also traded for Bojan Bogdanovic and Alec Burks at the trade deadline. Bojan hasn't been the greatest for this New York Knicks team. Neither has Alec Burks, but yet still they could still be major factors in the playoffs. They could still have the opportunity to score 30. We know Bogdanovic can. We saw it in Detroit. Alec Burks can get hot, and when he gets hot, Alec Burks is a lethal shooter from the perimeter. I think this New York Knicks team has the scores to potentially make a run in the postseason and give Boston a potential challenge in the conference finals. And I also think that they have the defense as well to give Boston or a team like Philadelphia a challenge in a 7-game series. Miles McBride, incredible defender. Josh Hart, very, very gritty, grindy defender, will guard the best player, whether he has a size disadvantage, a physical disadvantage, inside, he will still guard that player, and he will do it to perfection. They also got Precious Achiuwa, man, who really hasn't been talked a lot about for this New York Knicks team, but he provides great length on the front court for the Knicks, gets a lot of rebounds. One problem for the Knicks that really killed them last season was their offensive rebounds. They gave up a lot of offensive rebounds, but now with Precious Achiuwa on the court, the New York Knicks have really fixed that issue, and Precious Achiuwa has really helped that issue, and he's really cleaned up the glass for the New York Knicks, and he's been solid for them. Now for Philadelphia, as we mentioned, we talked about them, their season a little bit earlier. Embiid's been injured. He came back. They beat Miami in a scary fashion. They were obviously vulnerable. They looked terrible in the first half. Embiid doesn't look healthy going into this playoff series against the New York Knicks. And, of course, it's going to be a very interesting series considering the factor of Embiid's health, considering that Randall's out, considering that even though Embiid's not healthy, you've got Mitchell Robinson and Hartenstein, who are not the Knicks' best defenders, guarding a Joel Embiid-type player. That's going to be intriguing. We love to see the matchup of Maxey and Brunson. That's also going to be an incredible matchup. Two incredible guards going at it in a 7-game series. We like to see that. And this Philadelphia-New York Knicks rivalry, all time, it's one of the best rivalries, and we get to see it again in the playoffs for the first time. I don't even know. I feel like they haven't played in years in the postseason, and they get the opportunity to do so. And this is not your typical 2-7. This is more like a 2-3 second-round matchup that you're getting in the first round, and it's going to be an absolute battle, a battle in this playoff series. But my keys for this series, the New York Knicks, what they have to do, they need to run zone, and they need to look at what Miami did. They need to run zone. They need to double on Embiid. They need to force Embiid to become a decision maker in a zone. When Embiid becomes a decision maker in a zone, he makes stupid turnovers. He doesn't really know who to give the ball to in that position. And he really turns the ball over a lot, and there's opportunity, and he puts his head down, and it's easy to steal the ball. New York needs to find ways to double, have good rotations, and force Embiid to give up the ball and let the others beat you, because Philly's not a great shooting team. Philly, they're not the best three-point shooting team. It looks like it because they've got Buddy Hield. Obviously, we know what Batum did last night. Tyrese Maxey, Embiid, whole roster, the whole squad, Kelly Oubre. But they're not a great shooting team. So maybe let the other guys beat you and let Embiid force some turnovers off him, get into some foul trouble, get some easy ones off the fast break if you're New York. And for the Philadelphia 76ers, what you need to do in order to win this playoff series, you need to find ways to stop Brunson from getting downhill and don't let Brunson draw fouls. Tyrese Maxey is going to, or maybe actually, I think Kyle Lowry may have that assignment. Maxey will probably be on him a little bit as well. Brunson, when Philadelphia's on the defensive side of the ball, once Brunson gets downhill, man, it's wraps. When Brunson gets downhill, he either gets fouled going up to the ring or he kicks it to the perimeter, and then there's another pass, and the Knicks get a three. Or if they don't get a three from second pass, up top, here we go again. Brunson is so hard to guard on the dribble, and he just gets to his jump shot easily, and he is one of those players who are so good at drawing fouls, and it is hard to stop. And if a guy like Tyrese Maxey gets into foul trouble, a good defender like Kyle Lowry gets into foul trouble, Brunson gets some easy ones. What if he's having an off night and you're giving him easy free throws? They need to stop Brunson from the free throw line and stop him from getting downhill. Now, my pick for this series, it's a tough one, but I'm going to go with my word that I've said. I said the winner of the 7-8 matchup, whether that's Philly or Miami, will beat the New York Knicks in the 7-game playoff series. I know New York has had an incredible series, and you've got to give them some credit, man. You've got to give them some credit, but there's nothing like the NBA playoffs without a major upset. And would you call it an upset? I wouldn't. Philadelphia will win in 6. I know New York has played amazing basketball, but ultimately I think the loss of Julius Randle will come back to haunt them eventually in this series. I think Philly will definitely get one of those games in New York, and I think if Philly just revolves around their offense, plays some solid defense against Brunson, I think Philadelphia is, quite frankly, the better basketball team, and they have the best. And at times, they will have the best player on the court. At times, when Embiid's not healthy, they won't. But I think 2 of the 3 best players are with the Philadelphia 76ers, and that's why I'm going to take the Philadelphia 76ers, and I think they will step up and win the series. It will be a good series still, but I'm going to take the Sixers in 6 with the Knicks going home in the first round. Now, let's go on to the Western Conference 7-2 matchup, which is, of course, a rematch of last year's Western Conference Finals with the Los Angeles Lakers and the Denver Nuggets. Of course, the Nuggets swept the Lakers last year in the conference finals, but obviously it's a new year, it's a new season, it's a new playoffs. The Nuggets lost Bruce Brown and Jeff Green. The Lakers have a better D'Angelo Russell, got Spencer Dinwiddie off the waivers, have a Gabe Vincent now, their players got better. So it's a different Lakers team, and the Lakers are really peaking right now currently. They had an impressive win. They probably should have lost that game in New Orleans, but they still got out of it. They're still here in the situation right now, playing against a Denver team who we know is going to be tough and going to be lethal. Now, for Denver's season overall, of course, it was not, of course, as dominant as it was last season. Of course, more teams are going to be on them. More teams are going to be like, these are the champions. It's harder to have the same success in the regular season as a defending champion because considerably, as I said, teams are going to be, oh, these are the champs. We need to get ready for this game. This is a huge game for us. Of course, they still finished 57-25, tied for first in the Western Conference with Oklahoma City, but OKC beat them in head-to-head 3-1, so they do get that tiebreaker. And I think in the season series, the Nuggets beat the Lakers 3-0, if I'm not mistaken. I think twice in LA, once in Denver at the opening of the regular season. Quite frankly, if the Nuggets this year, Jokic has absolutely just been Jokic. Jamal Murray has been solid as well, but he was injured for a little bit. He did miss 23 games, but he should be good to go now. Michael Porter Jr. had another solid season at 17 points per game. Gordon being impactful on the defensive end. And Reggie Jackson, a solid season for someone who really wasn't in the rotation last year for Denver. Got that opportunity with Bruce Brown signing it to Indiana, now winds up with Toronto because of the Siakam trade. But Reggie Jackson got more opportunities, and he played solid, getting 10 points per game. KCP is still there, 10 points per game as well. Christian Braun, I'm a little disappointed in Christian Braun. Thought he'd have a better sophomore season from what we saw last year in the playoffs, and especially in the NBA Finals. Didn't really make that jump that we expected, but still will be a crucial factor for the Denver Nuggets in this postseason run. Peyton Watson was also pretty solid for Denver, 6.5 points per game. And then pretty much everyone else was in and out of the lineup for Denver there. But Denver's ready, man. Denver is the favorite in the Western Conference, and they very well should be. This team's the defending champion. They've got the best player in the league. They've got somebody else. Somebody else who is a all-star caliber player. They've got two more players who are above average role players and, quite frankly, stars in their roles. They've got shooters around the court. They've got the defense with Aaron Gordon, Peyton Watson, even KCP, and a little bit of Reggie Jackson as well. This team is just solid all throughout, and it's going to be a tough matchup for the Lakers. Obviously, AD is going to have that challenge against Nikola Jokic, and we love to see that matchup. Of course, Jokic dominated it, obviously, last year, other than game one when Davis had a solid game, against Nikola Jokic, but other than that, it was a Jokic domination. And if the Lakers were able to it's just hard to figure out a way to contain Jokic. Honestly, what you're going to have to do is let the others beat you, because there's, quite frankly, I just don't see a reality in where you can just let Jokic score and score and score. And they're going to have to let the others beat. And it's tough to do that because considering their others are all-star caliber players, their others are Jamal Murray, Michael Porter Jr., Aaron Gordon, KCP, Reggie Jackson. The list goes on and on. It's tough, but there's been no answer to stop Denver yet so far, and somebody's going to have to figure it out. I don't know. Somebody is, and the Lakers are going to have to find ways to score threes because the Lakers are going to have to keep up with a Denver offense that is going to be lethal and brutal in a playoff series. The Lakers are going to have to hit threes like they did in New Orleans. The Lakers are going to have to find another player, not just LeBron, not just AD, not even just D'Angelo. They're going to have to find a fourth player, just like this Denver team. Maybe that fourth player is Gabe Vincent, who we saw in Miami do some stuff in the postseason. Maybe that fourth player is Austin Reeves, who we've seen at times be capable of having big performances. Maybe that fourth guy is a potential Spencer Dinwiddie. He hasn't played great for this Lakers roster so far, but we've seen at times he can be, especially in the postseason, be decent for a squad. Maybe it's Rui Hachimura. Maybe, I don't know who that fourth guy is, but somebody's going to have to be that fourth guy in order for the Lakers to win. That is their key. That is my key for the Los Angeles Lakers to win the series. Somebody has to be the fourth guy for this Lakers squad. There's just no other way to keep up with Denver. They're going to need more scoring production, and they're going to need someone to help LeBron and help AD, considering LeBron's going to be guarded by a tough defender in Aaron Gordon and AD as well with Nikola Jokic. Now for the Denver Nuggets, you're going to have to do what you always do, revolve the offense around Jokic. Just hand Jokic the ball and let him do the work. There's really nothing else. I think the Nuggets should be able to handle this series, not trying to spoil my pick here, but I think the Nuggets are just a flat-out better team. And if they just do what they've been doing in the regular season, revolve the offense around Jokic, don't get into stupid foul trouble, play hard-nosed defense, be disciplined at the rim, what they've been doing all season long to get the record to where they are, to what they were doing all season last season to be an NBA champion, that's what they have to do. Be consistent. Just be consistent. Get the job done and win and move on to the next one. And clearly, as you can tell, I'm all over Denver on this series. I don't see the Lakers doing anything. I saw it last year. It's basically the same. Even though they've gotten a little bit better, the Denver, they're still the same team, man. Denver in 5. Lakers will get one this year because they're a little bit better. Well, they're a little bit of a better team. I just don't see this going anywhere further. But if the Lakers were to pull off this upset, if the Lakers were to make a finals appearance, if the Lakers were to beat this Denver Nuggets team, quite frankly, they could beat any team in the West. If the Lakers were to do this and they made the finals, they won a title, I would put LeBron as the GOAT. I would. They would really if LeBron wins a title with this team, beating a Denver Nuggets team and potentially beating a Boston Celtics team on his way to win the title, he is the GOAT. For right now, I still got Jordan. One more title you've got to debate. One more incredible title you've got to debate. I'll say that the Cleveland title counted as 2 because for how good that title was. But other than that, I think really if he were to pull this off, man, that would be ridiculous. Ridiculous. But I got Denver in 5. I just don't see a way. This Lakers team's just not good enough to handle Denver. Let's go to the 1 seeds, though, as we are not previewing the 1 seeds playoff series because we've got the playing games today coming out. So enjoy those. Remember, Miami, Chicago is at 7 p.m. Eastern time. We'll play Boston and not Minnesota. Oh my God. Sacramento and New Orleans will be at 9:30 on ESPN, 9:30 Eastern time, ESPN. Let's first talk about the Eastern Conference 1 seed, the Boston Celtics. Here's the question now. We've got in the Eastern Conference, right? Let's just go through the other teams on the list. The New York Knicks, the number 2 seed. Randall's injured, right? Number 3 seed, Milwaukee Bucks. Giannis is injured, right? Milwaukee hasn't played that great this season, and we know Milwaukee's vulnerable. Number 4 seed, or Cleveland. No. They're just not going to do anything. 5 seed Magic, too young. 6 seed Indiana, they're high scoring, but they're too young and inexperienced. 7 seed Philadelphia. Embiid's not 100% healthy. 8 seed Miami, who's beaten them before. Butler's injured. If Boston loses and does not make it to the finals, if Boston were to fall before the NBA Finals, man, what a upset and what a historical disappointment that would be for the Boston Celtics. There's just nothing else to say. You literally have the easiest path now. Even if Chicago wins, you should cruise through Chicago. If Miami wins now, Butler's not going to be there. And when you win that series, you've got Orlando and Cleveland. You've got a cakewalk to the conference finals, a literal cakewalk. I love Orlando, what they've done this season. Cleveland's had a solid regular season. They've got no shot against Boston. It should be a cakewalk to the conference finals if you're Boston. And quite frankly, it should be a cakewalk to the NBA finals if you're the Boston Celtics. If you were to lose, oh my word, I don't even know what to do. So to answer the question that's on the screen right now, yes, Boston has the most pressure out of any NBA organization. Jason Tatum, in my opinion, has the most, and Jaylen Brown have the most pressure out of any 2 basketball players in the entire league to win an NBA title. And it's quite frankly not even close. This has to be the year. Boston all over the stat charts, absolutely dominant all season long. Boston has been the most dominant team in the NBA, and quite frankly, it has not even been close. Let me give you some stats right now. Hold on while I pull up these incredible stats. Boston this season, are you ready for this? 2nd in points per game, right? 5th in points per game allowed. Not even top 10 offensive, both offense and defense, which is what a champion usually is. They are top 5 in both offense and defense. Margin of victory, number 1, not even close. They've got 2 All-NBA guys. They are number 1 in strength of record and strength of schedule. They have the best record in the Eastern Conference by 13.5 games. They have the best record in the league by 7 games. They are 64-18. They are only allowing teams to score 109 points per game while they're scoring 121 themselves. This team, if they lose, I mean, what else is there to do? You've got Porzingis, who's been stellar. I was wrong about this. I thought Marcus Smart was going to be a huge loss. You've got to give credit to Brad Stevens, man. I hate to say this as a Heat fan. Credit to Brad Stevens, man. Incredible moves in the offseason. Porzingis has been that X factor. He's really opened up Boston's offense, especially when Tatum and Brown get stuck. Porzingis easily is a stretch 3 big and can, as a 7-foot guy, just scary. And Holiday's guarding the best player on every team, and it gives less load on Brown and Tatum on the defensive side of the ball. If this team does not win an NBA title, yes, that too. But if they don't make the NBA Finals, Joe Mazzulla will be fired. Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown, most likely Jaylen Brown, should be moved. If that's the case, Jaylen Brown will be moved and should be moved, and Joe Mazzulla should be fired. There is absolutely no excuse not to get out of this Eastern Conference. Everybody's injured. Butler's injured. Embiid's injured. Giannis is injured. Randall's injured. There is no excuse if you're the Boston Celtics. You've got the team, and there's just nothing else to say. Boston has all the pressure in the world, and they better live up to it because we've seen them be vulnerable in the postseason before, and we've seen them undermine opponents before. They cannot do it again this year. They have to be ready with the mentality to win, 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 and dominate, dominate, dominate. No looking forward, no looking back. Just one game at a time, one possession at a time. Win and dominate that possession. You cannot be looking ahead. And trust me, dude, the press will be on top of Boston if they were to not make the finals. I, quite frankly, have never seen a team in the East that has just been that heavy of a favorite. I know Cleveland in those years, 2015 to 2018, were favorites. But this Boston team is the best team I've seen since the 2017-2018 Warriors. Easily. Not even close. On paper, on the stat board, in the regular season, the best team we have ever seen since the 2017-2018 Warriors. That's been a whole 7 seasons, essentially. 6 to 7 seasons. The best team ever since then. Don't lose, Jason Tatum. Don't lose. Joe Mazzulla, your job is on the line. Don't lose. Jaylen Brown, your opportunity to play with the Boston Celtics is on the line. Don't lose. They have all the pressure in the world, and we're going to see if they live up to it. That's Boston's. That's all Boston's got to do. They've got to live up to the expectations. They haven't shown it, and they better show it this playoffs because they have the opportunity, their best opportunity, to win a basketball championship and to get out of the Eastern Conference once again. But let's go on to a more happier and less pressurized number 1 seed, the Oklahoma City Thunder. How far can the Thunder go? I mean, it's interesting because obviously the Thunder team is a very young basketball team. They've got Shea, obviously an MVP candidate, Jalen Williams, who's been on the rise, Chet Holmgren. Of course, you've got Josh Giddey there. You've got Lou Dort as well. You've got Isaiah Joe off the bench, traded for Gordon Hayward, even though he hasn't been that great. Cason Wallace, Aaron Wiggins, and the other Jalen Williams as well. This Thunder team is just not good on paper. And quite frankly, there's some teams there that I think could really expose some of these matchups on the Oklahoma City Thunder side. And I'm not going to call them a super weak number 1 seed because they deserve all the praise in the world. But I think they are a beatable number 1 seed in a first or second round series, especially in a second round series where they're playing the Clippers or the Mavericks. So to answer the question, I think Oklahoma City will not be making the conference finals. I think they will drop to one of the teams in the second round. I think they'll get past New Orleans or Sacramento. It'll be a tough series, maybe like a 6-game series, but I think they'll get past those teams. But the Clippers or the Mavs is just tough, man, because both those teams have been playing really solid in the regular season, and both teams have really just have not played like 4 or 5 seeds. But again, the West is just so dominant this year, and there's nothing anybody can do about it other than just shutting up and playing the basketball games. There's really nothing else to do. So if you're Oklahoma City, I mean, you've got potential to make the conference finals, but I just don't see it. They're young and inexperienced. I love them. I really am happy with the story. Mark Daigneault should be the coach of the year. I think nobody even knew his name 2 years ago. Now he's the coach of the year. Absolutely incredible for him as well. Sam Presti, you've got to give credit to him as well. Getting a haul of picks and cashing out on a lot of them and still having more picks to go and potentially could trade for a star in the offseason to make this Oklahoma City Thunder team even better. So that's going to be an intriguing storyline in the offseason as well if you are Oklahoma City. But hopefully they can continue their dominance in the playoffs. I expect a second-round exit to the Clippers or the Mavericks. This team's been really solid, though, and you've got to give them a lot of credit. But I just don't see where in a situation that OKC beats a star power Clippers team with Kawhi, Harden, Paul George, Russell Westbrook, Norman Powell, like in a 7-game series, or Dallas, who has a highly elite offensive team with a defense that is mightily improving. And of course, you've got Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving, of course. I just don't see it happening there. Thunder, though, really, really, you got to give them props. But I think we're running out of time here, and I think I'm going to call it there. That will do it today. That was a huge episode, probably my biggest episode ever. Thank you so much for the time today. And remember, please leave a like and subscribe on my YouTube channel. Follow me on Instagram at take_your_shot_podcast_. And thank you so much for watching, man. I've really loved the support. I've gotten a lot more viewers lately, and it's been absolutely incredible to see. Thank you so much for watching. We're going to continue doing 3 episodes a week. Stay tuned for Monday, where we've got Game 1 recaps for all 8 playoff games. It's going to go boom, 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 just like that. 80 minutes of solid recaps and initial reactions to playoff series, and we've got that Monday, so that's very exciting. Very excited for that. And remember, for this show, tell me how you would have taken your shots on these takes. That's all my shots for the day, folks. See you next time.